this little chick doesn't actually have a mother. I'm not sure exactly where it's come from, but I'm trying to nurture it as best I can. Here's the gathering flock over here, which beat it up basically. But if I take it out and put it on its own, it's not going to survive. So it's got to take its punishment here, I'm afraid, until we get it to a certain stage, if we can. George is doing well, actually, and since he's been in this compound, he's a bit strange from at first, but now he's got actually a lot healthier. Hasn't got his limp anymore. Hasn't got as much competition to deal with now, as it's all been eaten. So he's quite happy. Quite happy. Yeah, the chickens are, Richie and I are deliberating over chickens, the chicken run, as we want to talk. It's now been 2 years this month in November, when I took over the chickens from Tatai and Nanai. They were both coming down in the early hours of the morning. I remember telling you the story. After a few weeks here, thought I can't just sit here drinking coffee and let these two people in their 80s carry on doing this, because I could see they were struggling, and I got involved in just feeding the chickens. I thought it initially was going to be just feeding them in the morning, but of course it became tendering for them sort of morning, afternoon, evening. And of course it also involved buying the feed as well. So in the end, I mean, the feed, it's not expensive when you start, but you start adding it up over on a week by week basis. They probably eat about 600, 700, 800 pesos worth of, no, probably more. It's probably about well, no, let me think about it. It's got to be 500 pesos, 400 pesos a week, roughly, with the corn and the mix and everything else we give them. Because we give them a good diet, we don't give them any of that cheap stuff. So, let me just say, over a couple of years, we've probably spent 35, 36, 38,000 pesos on just chicken feed, just on the chicken feed. And we've spent money on other things as well: water, dispensers, fencing and poles, and building new chicken coops, repairing chicken coops, building compounds for the chickens, etc., etc., etc. Apart from all the time we give them as well, in terms of feeding them in the morning, feeding them in the afternoon, feeding them in the evening, and making sure they're all okay. The chickens do eat well. We had a couple of chickens slaughtered for the native chickens slaughtered for the Tatai's 40-day sort of celebration, and I must say the chicken that we reared compared with chicken we bought, because we had both in different dishes, and this chicken was absolutely fantastic flavour, unbelievable in terms of how it tasted. So there's no doubt how chickens are brought up and looked after is very key to the taste and flavour. But I'm reaching a stage where I'm saying, look, do I really need this in my... I've sort of fallen into the chicken route, and I was doing it for Tatai. When Tatai was still alive, chickens he loved, and hearing chickens, even when he was in his room and he didn't get out of his room, he could still hear the cluck, cluck, cluck outside his window. And it's a soothing thing, particularly for someone like Tatai, who did love his chickens. There's no doubt about that. His chickens came first in most things. I think they came before Nana. No, actually, no, probably not. But they certainly were very important in his life. No doubt about that. And I mean, old George, you know, the Rhode Island Red we have. I mean, to me, he's a pet. Now, I mean, I would never eat him. I'd keep him as a pet until he passed. That would be my view on him. But Richie and I are talking about, is it time we retired from the chicken industry, which is, for us, certainly not a profitable proposition. It costs us money, it costs us time. One could say, does it give us certain good things, though, that we don't, that we get? Yeah, the point to get up in the morning and do these chores, the point that feeding chickens and observing chickens and seeing chicks growing up and tending to those sort of things over time, we kind of, is it good therapy? Is it a good therapy for us, just doing these chores? Chicken therapy, let's call it. Does that make us better people? Does it make us healthier? Does it make us, yeah. So is it worth paying the premium of chicken feed and stuff just to see happy chickens that you know you've achieved something? And that's what's in my mind at the moment. That's what I'm kind of weighing up. Now, we've given them a fair amount of land there. You know, they've got, what, I don't know, 300 square meters of land to run around in. That's now totally theirs, shall we call it. Probably 250, actually, not 300. But they got their own. They're now safe in an area where no dogs can get in, and where they can, particularly the fit ones, can get out and jump back in again when they need to, so they can still go out beyond and forage further. But the young ones can't, the very young ones, and the old ones can't. And they're the ones that are vulnerable to the dogs and other carnivores around. So we've sorted that problem out now. So we had 14 chicks a month ago. We've still got 14 chicks. Now, that's never happened before in terms of, you know, we've usually lost half of them by this stage. And we've got, you know, they're coming. So they're coming back in force. And we were reducing them deliberately, because we were, at one stage, I think we were about 80, 90 chickens at one stage. And they've diminished due to their freedom, and dogs, of course. Not our dogs. Well, one of our dogs, Brownie, has been a bit of a pest for chicken his entire life. But more other dogs and strays that come through, or, you know, get into the compound in the night, etc. That's been the main problem. But, and I keep on saying but, is this a therapy that's worth investing in, or is it? Yeah, well, I mean, Richie and I both come to the conclusion, this is why I'm taking this story to the end result. Richie and I have come to the conclusion we probably don't need to have all this extra work. And certainly we don't need, I mean, although it's only a small cost, it's an extra cost. And it can do that, you know, with that sort of amount of money you're spending every month on chicken feeds, you could put it to something else, or purchase something else, or buy it. And when I started putting those things into Richie's head, if you had that amount of money per month, what would you do with it if you want to spend it with chickens? And she said, oh, can I have it spent? And I said, well, of course you can, my darling, but what are you going to spend it on? And she said, well, I don't want to tell you. That's what she said. But I mean, the point is, we could, and we don't even eat eggs to that extent. You know, we have the occasional egg. Richie uses eggs for baking, of course. But a lot of the, because of the number of roosters we have, and then we also have too many fertile eggs coming through that we then either let become incubated and they become chicks, or we just destroy them. But I think we'll be far better to have a few hens, good laying hens that lay eggs, a few eggs that we need, and then have them in an enclosure, much smaller enclosure that we can let out in the garden and then put back in the enclosure under our control as kind of pets that lay eggs. And George having freedom of the garden to be the family pet, and that's it. Nothing else. Nothing else. So George retires from being bonking Billy, as it were, to a more refined, simple life, living the rest of his years out, more like me. And yeah, we have say 4 or 5 hens that just give us some egg capacity for Rich's baking, etc. And if we need a nice egg, and they get fed still, sure, but not on the sort of budget that we're paying out at the moment. And we have a little tidy enclosure for the hens to do their thing in. And we can let them out to run around the garden when we're around and keep them in a safe quarantined area as such, like we would do in England, in effect. And that's it. So we still can, and with that we can still have our therapy of getting up in the morning and feeding them and watering them, and without having masses to take care of, and having to count how many we've got and how many we should have, and how many new chicks have we got, and what ages are they, and where have we got, because it's now becoming something. And I don't want to get into the chicken business. I don't want this to become that. And I'm happy to, if anyone else wants the chickens in the family, and I've said to Richie, if everyone wants to take these off our hands, that's fine. But, I think they're happy to have they've got to then pay to maintain them, to feed them, to look after them. I think that's part of the issue, that no one wants to do that, of course. And now after 2 years of doing it, I don't really want to do it either, It's not something I want to do. That money can go to medication when it's needed, or other things. Other things that can be used. It can be put to good use rather than keeping a whole flock of chickens happy for no other reason. Yeah, it's a overcast day today. It's Monday the 3rd. So I've got work this afternoon. I've got the morning off, and then tomorrow, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I've got no work. No classes. I still have work I have to do, and time to spend with Madam, of course. But this morning I've just been listening to, or watching and listening to some of my favourite, light's a bit strange, isn't it? Some of my favourite vloggers, John and Stephen, both English guys. John's a little bit older than I am. Oh, where's the light gone? Yeah, John's a little bit older than I am, and Stephen's a little bit younger than I am, so I'm kind of in the middle, what I can work out. So yeah, both English, but both and both have good messages to talk in terms of from the Philippines, in terms of their experiences and things they've done. I think they've both been in the Philippines more or less similar time frames. Both enjoy the Philippines, but both have stories to tell which were not particularly fun in terms of what happened to them. But you know, John's, you'll know who I'm talking about, I'm sure, but John sort of tells he's like more the, how can I describe, I don't want to offend John, because John is kind of like the agony aunt of the Philippines, a bit, he's like that in his stories about the you know, the relationships and things generally, not always. He's the kind of Marjorie Proops of the Philippines. That's showing my age as well. Marjorie Proops. I mean, I was very young when she was on TV in the UK, and probably no one's ever heard of her. But those of you who have will know. You'll have the age. That's for sure. So that's John's, but he also talks, like, I was interesting topic he was talking today about stemming from the things happening in England at the moment, when he was talking to friends, and his whole point on England, and I think he's got some good points. So a video worth watching in his case. Stephen, on the other hand, his videos are very chirpy, cheerful, but with negative, very chirpy, cheerful content presentation in terms of how he presents it. But usually the stories are quite scary, frightening. You know, all the things that can go wrong in the Philippines and usually do, and people ending up, you know, in jail or lost everything, or come down with serious illnesses or whatever, or even die. And so strong messages coming through, but at the same time, he's saying it with a chirpy, cheerful smile, and saying how much he loves it here, and he's scared to death of spiders and blah, blah, blah. So it's all it's entertaining. I mean, I watch it because it's very entertaining, and both John and Steve, and they can still, and their style is very much in these areas. Mine is not that at all. I mean, I'm nowhere near getting the subscribers they're getting, because I'm boring. I mean, I'm just talking, showing the compound, which is what I do. So I have got a very loyal following of people that follow the content, and I'm really letting people make their own minds up about what they think of the Philippines. So what I try and show in content of reality of living here myself, Richie, you know, showing the character of our life here more than anything else, and the simplicity of it. So I'm not polishing up or doing anything like that. I may sometimes have something dramatic to share, but I don't, if it comes into our life here, you know, then sometimes I choose not to share it. But I don't very often get to that stage of storytelling. And if I do tell a story, it's usually something that's not necessarily happening here on the compound. Most of my storytelling takes place on Facebook, actually, not on YouTube. And I tend to put it in a written format. But people on my channel, YouTube channel, do have access to my Facebook as well. So they're always welcome to join me on Facebook as well. Yeah, so there's lots of people on YouTube in the Philippines that turn their hand to telling their stories, telling their story, all with different messages, from positive points of view to negative points of view. But I think, you know, I would say everybody who comes to the Philippines, there's such a diversity of lifestyles you can have here, and you can't just slot into and say it's all the same. It's not. There's different experiences, so there's good and bad things people would enjoy here, I'm sure. But for me, you know, if I talk about myself, my type of age, my sort of person who's similar to me, I would say a place to come and slow down, and live a simple lifestyle. It's a perfect location, without any doubt. But if you want to come here for the razzmatazz and the faster pace of life and nightlife and things, that's also here, but then you're talking a different budget, a different cost base, and more at risk to lots of other things as well. So that's the difference. Yeah, this air side of the house, because it's out of sight, we tend to ignore it, but I've got to get Ronnie down here to tidy up down here at the moment.